10 months had passed since the Navi arrived. In Hanem, the leaves were turning red and yellow as fall began. The underground base of the voice had grown bigger, with tunnels connecting different buildings in the village. Jaiho, Haeyun, Tai Yang, Kyungmin, and Yoon Seo sat around a table in the main room. Maps and papers covered the surface. Plans were being made. "The resistance groups are ready," Tai Yang said, pointing to marks on the map. "We have people near every major Navi ship. But what exactly are we going to do?" Haeyun asked. "We know their weakness now, but how do we use it against them?" Jaiho looked at Yoon Seo. "Show them." Yoon Seo placed a small metal box on the table. It looked simple, with no buttons or screens. "This is what I call a harmonic void generator," she said. "It creates a special kind of silence." "I don't understand," Haeyun said. "Silence is just silence. There aren't different kinds." "Actually, there are," Kyungmin explained. "What we think of as silence is really just the absence of sound or signals we can detect. But in quantum terms, true silence has a specific pattern to it." Yoon Seo nodded. "The Navi harvest natural silence. It has a certain quantum signature they value." She pointed to her device. "This creates artificial silence with a different signature. It looks the same to normal instruments, but on a quantum level, it's like poison to their system." "How does it work?" Tai Yang asked. "Always practical. It generates a field that cancels all electromagnetic signals," Yoon Seo said. "But it adds a tiny quantum distortion that spreads through their storage system." Jaiho picked up the explanation. "Think of it like water. The Navi are collecting pure, clean water. This device makes water that looks and tastes pure, but contains a chemical that spreads through their whole tank." Haeyun was studying the device closely. "So small, hard to believe it could hurt something as advanced as the Navi ships." "That's our advantage," Jaiho said. "They don't expect us to understand their technology, let alone create something that can disrupt it." "How many of these can we make?" Tai Yang asked. "With the parts we have, maybe 50, Yoon Seo answered. "But we've sent the plans to other resistance groups. They're building them too." Haeyun had been quiet, thinking. Now she spoke up. "I've been analyzing the Navi communication patterns. There's something important we missed." She unfolded a paper with strange drawings on it. "They use quantum entanglement to talk instantly across great distances. Their whole network is connected." "What does that mean for us?" Jaiho asked. Haeyun smiled. "It means that if we can corrupt one part of their system, the corruption will spread to all of it. Their greatest strength becomes their greatest weakness." Tai Yang leaned forward, his eyes intense. "So we don't need to attack every ship. We just need to hit enough of them to start a chain reaction." "Exactly," Haeyun said. "Their whole system is built on perfect harmony. One wrong note, and the entire symphony falls apart." Kyungmin looked worried. "But what will the Navi do when they realize we're attacking?" "They might strike back harder." "That's why timing is critical," Tai Yang said. "We need to hit them all at once, before they understand what's happening." Jaiho looked at each of his friends. They had come so far from the day the ships first appeared. The engineer who loved quiet, the communications expert, the former soldier, the scientist, and the young engineer. Now they were planning to save the world. "So we don't fight the Navi with guns or bombs," Jaiho said slowly. "We fight them with silence itself. Their most sacred thing becomes our perfect weapon." "Poetic justice," Kyungmin said with a small smile. "When do we start?" Yoon Seo asked. Tai Yang looked at the calendar on the wall. "We need 2 weeks to get the devices to all teams and coordinate the attack." 2 weeks, Haeyun repeated. "After 10 months of silence, we'll finally make the Navi hear us." "Not with noise," Jaiho said, "but with silence so perfect it breaks their world apart." The sky above Hanem filled with strange lights as the Navi ships began to react. The small collection ship spun in circles, its smooth surface now flashing with blue and red pulses. In the distance, the temple ship over Seoul rose higher in the air, as if trying to escape something. "It's working," Yoon Seo shouted over the growing noise. The once silent ships now made a high whistling sound that hurt their ears. Hae-yun's radio crackled with messages from around the world. Brazil reports their target ships are moving away. Russia says the same. Jai-ho watched the ships with a mix of hope and worry. The harmonic voids are corrupting their entire network. They can't tell good silence from bad anymore. Taiyang pointed to the sky. "Look there." More Navy ships appeared, rushing toward the troubled vessels. They moved quickly, not in their usual calm way. These ships looked different, smaller, faster, with red lights instead of blue. "Rescue ships," Kyung-min guessed. "They're trying to save the infected vessels." But as the new ships got close to the damaged ones, they too began to show signs of the corruption. Their lights flickered, and they moved erratically. "The infection is spreading ship to ship," Jai-ho said. "Just like we hoped." For 2 hours, they watched the sky as more and more Navy ships gathered, trying to help each other, only to become infected themselves. The temple ship over Seoul was now completely covered in flashing lights, looking nothing like the calm, silent vessel that had watched over Earth for almost a year. Then something new happened. A massive ship, larger than any they had seen before, appeared high above. It glowed with a steady white light and moved toward the troubled temple ship. "That must be their command ship," Taiyang said, "the one in charge of the whole operation." As the huge ship approached the damaged vessels, a beam of white light shot down, touching each troubled ship in turn. Wherever the beam touched, the random flashing stopped, and the ships grew dark. "What are they doing?" Hae-yun asked. "Shutting them down," Kyung-min said. "It's the only way to stop the corruption from spreading further." The people of Haenam watched in awe as the great command ship moved from one damaged vessel to another, systematically shutting them down. When it finished, dozens of dark ships hung motionless in the sky. Then, without warning, the command ship released a pulse of energy that spread across the sky like a wave. Where it passed, the darkened ships began to glow again, but with a steady yellow light. One by one, they started moving upward, away from Earth. "They're leaving," Jai-ho whispered. All across the world, the same thing was happening. The Voices communication network brought reports from every continent. The Navy ships were retreating, climbing higher and higher until they vanished from sight. Hours passed. The sky grew empty. Night fell, and for the first time in almost a year, the stars shone without alien ships blocking their light. In the darkness, something amazing happened. Lights began to appear in distant cities. Electric power was returning. Hae-yun's radio, which had been limited to the secret voice network, suddenly picked up other signals. Regular radio broadcasts, weak at first, then stronger. Voices speaking in different languages, all sharing the same message. The Navy were gone. The next morning, Jai-ho, Hae-yun, Taiyang, Kyung-min, and Yoon Seo stood on the hill, watching the sunrise. In the village below, people were already testing old devices that had stopped working the day the aliens came. Some were working again. "We did it," Hae-yun said simply. "We drove them away." "Not just us," Jai-ho said. "All of humanity working together." Yoon Seo looked thoughtful. "Do you think they'll come back?" Taiyang shook his head. "Not for a long time. We poisoned their most valuable resource. They'll find somewhere else to harvest silence." "What do we do now?" Kyung-min asked. Jai-ho smiled as he heard the distant sound of a car engine, the first in nearly a year. "Now we rebuild," he said, "and we remember what we learned." "What's that?" Hae-yun asked. "That silence has power," he said, "but so does knowing when to break it." Around the world, humanity's voice was returning. Telephones rang, radios played music, and people everywhere told the story of how Earth fought back, against those who came to steal its silence. The small mountain village of Haenim sat quietly under the night sky. Most people in South Korea did not know about this place. That was why Jai-ho liked it so much. Jai-ho walked up the path to his small observatory on the hill. The metal dome shone in the moonlight. Inside were his machines and computers that he used to listen to space. 5 years ago, he had left his job in Seoul making sound systems. The city was too loud, too busy. Here in Haenim, he found peace. Working late again, called a voice from behind him. Jai-ho turned and saw Hae-yun walking up the path. She wore her usual work clothes, a simple blue shirt and black pants. Hae-yun ran the village's communication center. She made sure phone lines and internet worked for everyone. "The stars are very clear tonight," Jai-ho said with a smile. "Perfect for listening." Hae-yun shook her head. "You and your space sounds. Find any aliens yet?" Jai-ho laughed, but his eyes looked serious. "Come inside. I want to show you something." The observatory was small but neat. One large telescope pointed up through the open dome. Around the walls stood computers, speakers, and strange devices Jai-ho had built himself. "Listen to this," he said, pressing a button. A soft, steady pattern played through the speakers. It wasn't music. It wasn't random noise. It had a beat, like a heart, but with strange pauses. "What is it?" Hae-yun asked. "I don't know," Jai-ho said, "but it's not natural. I've been tracking it for 3 months now. It's getting stronger." Hae-yun looked worried. "Did you tell anyone?" Jai-ho shook his head. "Who would believe me? The university scientists would laugh. The government would take my equipment." He pointed to a screen showing a pattern of lines. "Look here. The pattern repeats, but it's changing. See this line? It gets shorter each day." Hae-yun leaned closer. "Like a countdown." Jai-ho nodded slowly. "That's what I think too." Outside, an owl called into the night. The mountains around Haenim stood dark and silent, protecting the village as they had for hundreds of years. "Maybe we should tell Taeyang," Hae-yun suggested. "He was in the military. He might know who to call." Jai-ho turned to his computer again. "Let me be sure first. I need more data." Hae-yun put a hand on his shoulder. They had been friends since they were children. She knew when he was scared, even if he tried to hide it. "How long?" she asked quietly. Jai-ho pointed to the screen. "If I'm right about the pattern, 3 days. 3 days until what?" "Until it reaches 0. 3 days later, Jai-ho sat alone in his observatory. The countdown pattern was faster now, almost urgent. He had not slept much. His eyes were red from staring at screens. His phone rang. It was Hae-yun. "Turn on your TV," she said. Her voice shook. "Any channel." Jai-ho grabbed the remote and turned on the small TV in the corner. The news showed people pointing at the sky. The camera moved up to show something that made Jai-ho's heart stop. A massive ship hung in the air above Seoul. It was dark gray, shaped like a smooth stone, with no lights or windows. As he watched, more ships appeared on the screen over other cities around the world. "Jai-ho." Hae-yun's voice came through the phone. "What's happening?" Jai-ho looked at his computer. The countdown pattern had stopped. In its place was a new sound, a deep, steady tone that made the hair on his arms stand up. "They're here," he whispered. "Whoever I've been hearing. They've arrived." His machines began picking up new signals, strong signals, coming from the ships. Patterns too complex for his computers to decode. As he watched, all the screens in his observatory flickered. The TV went to static, then black. His phone went dead. And then silence fell over the world. For 3 days, the ships hung in the sky without moving, silent, watching. The biggest one stayed above Seoul, its shadow making the city dark even at noon. In Haenim, people gathered in the small town square. Many tried to call family in Seoul, But no phones worked. No TV. No internet. Some had small radios that still worked on batteries, but they only got static. Why aren't they doing anything? Someone asked. Why just wait? Tai Yang stood at the back of the crowd. He was tall and thin, with short gray hair. Before coming to Hanem, he had been a captain in the Korean army. His eyes never left the distant sky where, just beyond the mountains, he knew the ships were watching. They are doing something, he said. His voice was quiet, but people turned to listen. They're cutting us off. It's what I would do. He Yun pushed through the crowd to reach him. Tai Yang, Ji-ho needs you at the observatory. He says it's important. When they reached the hilltop observatory, Ji-ho was waiting outside. His face looked pale. Some of my equipment still works, he said, leading them inside. The stuff I built with special shielding, to keep out Earth signals when I'm listening to space. On a small screen, they could see news from other countries. Soldiers in America, China, and Russia had tried to shoot down the ships. Nothing worked. Missiles stopped in midair. Fighter planes lost power and had to land. Guns fired, but the bullets seemed to hit some invisible wall around the ships. That's not the important part, Ji-ho said. He turned a dial on his radio. Listen. A voice came through the speakers. It wasn't human. It spoke in a language none of them knew. But as they listened, the words began to change, as if the voice was learning how to speak to them. Silence is required. Your noise pollutes. We are the Navi, collectors of silence. It's them, Heyun whispered. The aliens. How are you getting this? They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Ji-ho said. To everyone, everywhere. The voice continued. Your transmissions have violated the sacred space. 100 years of silence is demanded. All electromagnetic emissions must cease. Tai Yang's face grew dark. They want us to stop using all technology. Everything that sends signals. That would send us back to the 1800s, Heyun said. No phones, no computers, no modern medicine. People would die. The voice from the speaker grew louder. Compliance is not optional. The silence must be restored. You have 24 hours to cease all emissions. Outside, they heard shouts from the village. Heyun ran to the door and looked down the hill. People were pointing at the sky. A smaller ship, shaped like a smooth dark egg, moved slowly over Hanem. It made no sound. It seemed to be scanning. They're looking for signal sources, Tai Yang said. Radio towers, power plants, anything that makes electromagnetic waves. What happens after 24 hours? Heyun asked. Ji-ho turned up the volume on his radio. The alien voice was still speaking. Non-compliance will be met with the great silencing. Your ability to make noise will be removed. Suddenly, all the equipment in the observatory went dark. Even Ji-ho's shielded devices stopped working. They found us, he said. Through the open dome of the observatory, they watched as the small ship moved away, heading toward the next village. We need to warn people, Heyun said. They don't understand what's coming. Tai Yang shook his head. With what? No phones. No internet. We still have our feet, she said, already moving toward the door. We can walk to the next village before the ship gets there. Ji-ho grabbed a bag and started filling it with small devices and tools. I need to save what I can. My equipment might be our only chance to understand these Navi. Tai Yang watched the ship disappear over the horizon. I've seen this before. First you cut communications. Then you attack when your enemy can't coordinate. So what do we do? Heyun asked from the doorway. Tai Yang's eyes were hard. We prepare for war. The day of the attack arrived. Dawn broke clear and cold over Hanem. Birds sang in the trees, unaware that today might change the future of humanity. Inside the underground base, final preparations were underway. Tai Yang checked the map one last time. Red dots showed all the places where resistance groups would activate their harmonic void generators at exactly the same time. All teams are ready, he said. The timing has to be perfect. Jai-ho nodded. He had barely slept for days, working to make sure their plan would succeed. The Na'vi collect silence at the same time each day. We need to hit them when their storage systems are most active. Yoon-seo carefully packed the last harmonic void generator into a metal box. This one would stay with them in Hanem, near the Na'vi collection ship that passed overhead every day. Once we activate these, she said, we'll have about 10 minutes before the Navy realize something is wrong. The corruption will spread through their quantum storage network quickly after that. Hae-yun sat at the communication station, sending final instructions to groups around the world using their hidden signal network. Everyone is in position, she reported. Australia, Russia, Canada, Brazil, all ready and waiting for the signal. Kyung-min looked worried. What if the Na'vi retaliate? They might attack Earth directly once they know what we're doing. That's a risk we have to take, Tai-yang said firmly. We can't live like this for 100 years. Jai-ho checked his watch. It's time. Let's go. They climbed the stairs and walked through the village to the hill where Jai-ho's observatory once stood. Now there was just an empty field. The perfect place to set a trap. Yoon-seo placed the harmonic void generator on the ground and opened the box. The small metal device sat quietly, not looking like much. How long until the collection ship arrives? She asked. Jai-ho checked his watch again. 17 minutes. Right on schedule, just like always. They could see other villagers watching from doorways and windows. Everyone knew something important was happening today. No matter what happens, Tai-yang said quietly, we fought back. Remember that. The minutes passed slowly. Then, right on time, they saw it. A dark shape moving across the sky, heading toward them. The Na'vi collection ship, silent and smooth, came to harvest the silence of Hanem. Get ready, Jai-ho said. Hae-yun spoke into her radio. All teams, prepare to activate on my mark. The ship moved directly overhead, stopping about 500 feet above them. A soft blue light began to glow from its underside. That's the collection beam, Kyung-min whispered. It's starting. Hae-yun took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. Now. Yoon-seo pressed the button on the harmonic void generator. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The small device hummed softly, then fell silent. But around the world, at that exact moment, 50 other identical devices activated, each one creating a perfect pocket of artificial silence, right where the Na'vi were harvesting. For 30 seconds, nothing changed. The ship above them continued its collection, the blue light steady. Then the light flickered. It's working, Yoon-seo whispered. The blue light from the ship pulsed, growing brighter, then dimmer. A low hum filled the air, something they had never heard from a Na'vi ship before. The corruption is spreading through their system, Jai-ho said. The harmonic voids are poisoning their quantum storage. Suddenly, the blue light shut off completely. The ship above them moved, tilting to one side as if confused. Look, Hae-yun pointed to the horizon. In the distance, the much larger temple ship that had been hovering over Seoul was glowing with bright flashes of light. The feedback loop is affecting the main ships now, Kyung-min said. Their whole network is being corrupted. Tai-yang's face was grim but satisfied. Phase 1 complete. Now for Phase 2. He spoke into his radio. All teams, begin radio transmissions. Hit them with everything we've got. All across the world, resistance groups turned on powerful radio transmitters they had built in secret. Not random noise, but precisely calculated frequencies designed to disrupt the Na'vi systems even further. The counterattack had begun. 6 months after the Great Silencing, spring came to Hanem. The snow melted and small green plants pushed up from the ground. Life was changing. People had learned to live without modern technology. They grew food, built homes, and worked together. But inside Jai-ho's observatory, now hidden under a larger building, the fight against the Na'vi continued. Try it now, Jai-ho said to Yoon-seo, who sat at a table covered with parts and tools. She pressed a button on a small device. A light turned green. "It works," she said, her voice excited. "The signal is completely hidden inside the carrier wave." He-Yun leaned closer. "What does that mean?" "It means," Jai-Ho explained, "that we can send messages the Na'vi can't detect. The signal looks like natural background radiation to them." Tai Yang nodded with approval. He had spent the winter training young people from the village in survival skills and basic fighting. Now they had a communication system that could help them coordinate with other groups. "How far can it reach?" he asked. "About 50 miles with this one," Yoon Seo said. "But we're building bigger ones that can reach farther." Kyung Min entered the room, carrying papers covered with notes. His hair had grown long, and he looked tired but excited. "I've been talking to the science team in Hokkaido," he said. "They found something interesting about the Na'vi ships." He spread his papers on the table. They showed wave patterns and numbers. The ships emit specific harmonic frequencies. These frequencies follow a pattern we can predict. "How does that help us?" He-Yun asked. Yoon Seo's eyes widened as she looked at the papers. "We could use this to disrupt their systems." "Exactly," Kyung Min said. "If we can generate the right counter-frequency, we might be able to interfere with their technology." Jai-Ho nodded slowly. "Like noise cancellation in reverse. Instead of canceling noise, we cancel their silence." Over the next few weeks, news spread through their hidden communication network. Other groups around the world were fighting back in their own ways. Some had built similar shielded communities. Others had found ways to use technology without the Na'vi noticing. One night, they received an important message from a group in Australia. "The Na'vi have a schedule," Tai Yang read from the message. "Their ships move in a pattern that repeats every 28 days. Like a patrol route," Jai-Ho said. "Or a ritual," Kyung Min suggested. Yoon Seo had been quiet, working on a new device in the corner. Now she spoke up. "I think I'd figured something out," she said. "The Na'vi don't just want silence. They're collecting it." Everyone turned to look at her. "What do you mean, collecting it?" He-Yun asked. Yoon Seo held up her device. "This scanner shows energy flows around the Na'vi ships. They're not just stopping our signals. They're absorbing the empty space where our signals used to be." Jai-Ho's face showed shock. "They're harvesting our silence." "Like a resource," Tai Yang said, understanding immediately. Kyung Min sat down heavily. "That changes everything. This isn't a religious mission. It's an economic one. Earth's silence is valuable to them," Jai-Ho said. "Maybe the most valuable thing on our planet." He-Yun looked angry. "So they're not protecting sacred space. They're stealing from us. And they plan to do it for 100 years, Tai Yang added grimly. Jai-Ho walked to the map on the wall. It now showed hundreds of red pins where resistance groups had formed around the world. "We need to share this information with everyone," he said. "And we need to speed up our plans." Yoon Seo held up her device. "I think I can build something that will disrupt their harvesting. But I'll need help." "You'll get it," Tai Yang said. "Whatever you need." He-Yun looked at her friends. Once they had been ordinary people living quiet lives. Now they were leaders of Earth's resistance. "So what do we call ourselves?" she asked. "Every resistance needs a name." Jai-Ho thought for a moment. "How about the voice? Because we're fighting for humanity's right to be heard again." Everyone nodded. The voice was born. 8 months after the Na'vi arrived, the voice had grown strong. Groups all over the world now used Jai-Ho's hidden communication system. Information flowed between them, building a web of resistance. In Hanem, the observatory had expanded underground. What once was just Jai-Ho's small workspace was now a busy center filled with people and equipment. Yoon Seo had been working day and night on a special project. She barely slept or ate. When He-Yun brought her food, she often found the young engineer asleep at her workbench. "You need to rest," He-Yun told her one evening. Yoon Seo shook her head. I'm close to something important. I can feel it. Her workspace was filled with parts taken from Navi technology. Resistance fighters had managed to collect pieces of broken Navi devices after a ship crashed in Canada 3 weeks earlier. "What are you trying to do?" Hei-yun asked, looking at the strange metal pieces. "I'm trying to understand how they store what they collect," Yum-seo explained. "If silence is a resource to them, they must keep it somewhere." The next morning, everyone woke to Yum-seo's excited shouts. They rushed to her workroom, where she stood beside a glowing device. "I did it," she said. Her eyes were red from no sleep, but her face shone with happiness. "I got it working." The device on her table looked like a small metal box with lights. Inside, a piece of Navi technology glowed with a soft blue light. "What is it?" Tai Yang asked. "It's a storage unit," Yum-seo said. "From the crashed ship. I figured out how to power it and read its data." Jai-ho looked amazed. "You can read their technology." "Not completely," she admitted, "but enough to understand what they're doing." She pointed to the glowing blue light. "This is quantum storage, much more advanced than anything we had on Earth. Each ship carries thousands of these units." Kyung-min leaned closer. "What do they store?" "Emptiness," Yum-seo said, "or what they call pure silence. They record the absence of signals in specific areas of space." "Like recording a blank tape?" Hei-yun asked. "Similar, but much more complex," Yum-seo said. "They're not just recording nothing. They're recording the perfect pattern of nothing." Jai-ho suddenly understood. That's why they needed to silence Earth. Our signals were making noise in their recordings. "Exactly," Yum-seo said. "And here's the most important part." She touched a control on the device, and the blue light pulsed faster. "These recordings are incredibly valuable to the Navi. They use them for something important." "What?" Tai Yang asked. "I'm not sure yet," she admitted, "but I think it's related to their quantum communication system. They need perfect silence to maintain their network across space." Kyung-min sat down, his face pale. "So Earth isn't just in their way. We're sitting on a gold mine of silence that they want to harvest. And they plan to take it all," Jai-ho said. "For 100 years. Hei-yun looked angry. "We have to stop them." "There's more," Yum-seo said. She pressed another control, and the device showed strange patterns of light. "Look at this. Each temple ship is recording constantly. The small ships we see moving around. They're not patrol ships. They're collection vessels, gathering silence from different areas and bringing it back to the temple ships. Like a mining operation," Tai Yang said grimly. "A planetary-scale theft," Jai-ho added. Yum-seo nodded. "And the biggest discovery of all. Their quantum storage system is incredibly sensitive. The smallest disruption in the recording pattern could corrupt their entire database." Everyone was quiet as they understood what this meant. "We don't need to fight their ships," Jai-ho said slowly. "We need to poison their harvest." Tai Yang's eyes narrowed. "How?" "I don't know yet," Jai-ho admitted. "But now we know their weakness." Hei-yun looked at each of her friends. "The Navy came here thinking we were just noisy animals they could silence. They didn't realize we would understand their technology, their plans. They came for silence," Yum-seo said quietly. "And they're going to get something else entirely," Tai Yang finished. 24 hours passed. The world's leaders tried to talk to the Navi. They offered deals. They made promises. But the aliens would not change their minds. When the deadline came, the great ships in the sky began to glow with a soft blue light. Then, without warning, they released a wave of energy that spread across the Earth. In cities, cars stopped in the middle of roads. Lights went out. Hospitals lost power. Planes fell from the sky. Anything that ran on electricity or sent out signals just stopped working. The Navi called it the Great Silencing. In Hanem, Jai-ho watched from his observatory as the blue wave passed overhead. He held his breath, waiting for his equipment to die. But something strange happened. Some of his machines kept working. "I don't understand," he said to He-Yun and Tai-Yang. "Why didn't it affect everything?" Tai-Yang looked at the machines that still worked. "What's different about these?" Jai-Ho touched the metal box around one computer. "This is the shielding I built. It keeps out Earth signals so I can hear space better." "Like a noise cancellation system?" He-Yun asked. Jai-Ho's eyes widened. "Yes, that's it. The Navi technology works like noise cancellation, but for all electronic signals." He grabbed a piece of paper and started drawing. Normal noise cancellation creates an opposite sound wave to cancel out noise. These shields create a barrier that stops signals from getting in or out. "So the Navi can't detect what's inside the shield?" Tai-Yang asked. "I think so," Jai-Ho said. "It's not perfect, but it's something." Over the next few days, chaos swept across the world. Without electricity or communications, cities quickly ran out of food and water. People began leaving the cities, looking for places where they could survive. Some arrived in Hanum, bringing stories of what was happening outside. The Navi ships now hovered over every major city. They didn't attack people directly, but their presence alone was enough to cause fear. Tai-Yang took charge of organizing the village. He set up guards, created food storage, and made plans for the winter that was coming. People listened to him because of his military background. Meanwhile, Jai-Ho worked day and night in his observatory. He built more shielded boxes for his equipment. He studied the Navi ships through his telescope. "Look at this," he said to He-Yun one night, showing her a drawing. "The ships are positioned in a pattern. It's like they're creating a net around the Earth." He-Yun looked at the map where Jai-Ho had marked the ship's positions. "Are they trapping us? Or containing something?" Jai-Ho said. "But what?" A week after the Great Silencing, something unexpected happened. A man arrived in Hanum, exhausted from walking for days. His name was Kyung-Min, and he was an astrophysicist from Seoul National University. "I heard there was working technology here," he said when they brought him to Jai-Ho's observatory. "I had to see for myself." Jai-Ho showed him the shielded equipment. Kyung-Min examined everything carefully. "This is brilliant," he said. "Simple but effective." "Do you know what the Navi want?" He-Yun asked him. "Why do they need silence?" Kyung-Min sat down heavily in a chair. "Before the ships came, my team was studying an unusual phenomenon in space, a region where there are no radio signals at all. We called it the silent zone." "How is that related to the Navi?" Tai-Yang asked. "Because," Kyung-Min said, "our signals from Earth were passing through that zone. We've been broadcasting radio, TV, and all kinds of signals into space for decades. We've been filling their silent zone with our noise." Jai-Ho looked at his friends. "So they didn't come here to conquer us?" "No," Kyung-Min said. "They came to shut us up." 3 months passed since the Great Silencing. Winter came to Hanum, covering the mountains with snow. The village had grown as more people arrived, looking for safety. Inside Jai-Ho's observatory, now surrounded by a larger shield he had built, a small group gathered around a radio. Jai-Ho turned the dials carefully, trying to catch weak signals. "There," he said as a voice crackled through the static. "This is Hanum Base. We are receiving. Over." The voice that answered was faint. "This is Osaka Research Team. Good to hear you again, Hanum." He-Yun smiled. It had taken weeks to make contact with other places that still had working technology. Now they spoke with groups in Japan, Russia, and even Canada. Kyung-Min sat nearby, making notes. "Ask them if they've seen any change in the ship patterns." Jai-Ho repeated the question into the radio. After a moment, the answer came back. "No changes. The ships stay in position. They don't react to anything we do unless we try to use large power sources or transmissions." When the call ended, Tai-Yang looked at the map on the wall. Red pins showed where they had made contact with other groups. Blue pins showed no Navi ship locations. They're watching us, he said, making sure we stay silent. But why? Hye-Yun asked. Why is silence so important to them? Kyung-min stood up and walked to a blackboard covered with equations and drawings. I think I understand now. The Na'vi don't see silence as just the absence of noise. To them, silence is sacred. He drew a circle on the board. This is what we call the silent zone in space. Before the Na'vi came, we thought it was just an empty area. Now I believe it's their holy place. Like a church? Hye-Yun asked. More like a temple, Kyung-min said. The Na'vi worship the great silence. Our radio signals, TV broadcasts, all our electromagnetic noise has been passing through their temple for decades. We've been shouting in their church, Tae-yang said quietly. Jae-ho nodded. And their ships. He pointed to the map. Those aren't warships. They're temple ships, making sure we respect their sacred space. Just then, the door opened. A young woman entered, shaking snow from her coat. It was Yoon Seo, a 19-year-old who had arrived in Hanam a month ago. Before the Great Silencing, she had been an engineering student. I finished the scanner, she said, holding up a small device made from parts Jae-ho had given her. It can detect the energy fields from the Na'vi ships from up to 10 miles away. Tae-yang took the device and looked it over. Good work. There's something else, Yoon Seo said. The scanner picked up a pattern in the energy fields. They pulse every 6 hours, all at the same time. Jae-ho's eyes widened. Like they're checking in with each other, or reporting back to someone, Tae-yang suggested. Kyung-min walked to the telescope and adjusted it. One of the Na'vi ships was visible in the distance, a dark shape against the cloudy sky. They're not interested in us, he said. Not really. They don't want our land or our resources. They just want silence. For how long? Hye-Yun asked. They said 100 years, Jae-ho reminded her. Tae-yang shook his head. We can't wait that long. People are dying without modern medicine and technology. We need to find a way to make them leave sooner. But how? Yoon Seo asked. We can't fight them. Their technology is too advanced. Jae-ho looked at the radio, then at his shielded equipment. An idea was forming in his mind. Maybe we don't need to fight them, he said slowly. Maybe we just need to understand them better. He turned to Kyung-min. If silence is sacred to them, what would happen if we found a way to disrupt that silence? Not with noise, but with something else. Kyung-min's eyes widened, like fighting fire with fire. Or in this case, Jae-ho said, fighting silence with silence.